Great. Hello, welcome everybody to my Scythe Talk. I am Mr. Manning, one of the two college counselors here at Trinity High School. Today I'll be presenting on Frank Lloyd Wright and his architectural masterpiece, Fallingwater. It is referenced in the book. It is where Scythe Curry lives. She lives in this house in the book, and we'll talk a little bit about that connection. But as your college counselor, I'm also going to talk a little bit about architecture and what you have to do if you want to become an architect. How do you do that? So that's what we're going to talk about. Two things today: Fallingwater, but we'll also talk a little bit about architecture and how to become an architect if you like to go down that road of careers. Yeah. So Frank Lloyd Wright. Influential American architect, built for decades, right? He developed this whole idea of organic architecture. So he's incorporating the surroundings into his buildings, right? And Fallingwater House is an excellent example of this type of architecture, where the architecture blends seamlessly with the nature around it. A little bit about Frank Lloyd Wright. Born in Wisconsin, worked on his uncle's farm. That very close relationship with nature. Okay, that's the seeds of that are planted, of course, on a farm. Right, that's where seeds are planted. On a farm, right? Not ironically, on a farm. So he did go ahead and study civil engineering briefly at the University of Wisconsin. Did not graduate from the University of Wisconsin with an engineering degree or architecture degree, but he did move to Chicago, worked for Louis Sullivan, who was the father of skyscrapers. And while working with Sullivan, this is when he began to develop his unique architectural vision. And by the early 1900s, Wright pioneered this prairie school style, which is horizontal lines, flat roofs, right? Not the pointed roofs that we're used to in a house. Flat roofs, horizontal lines, and this integration with the surrounding landscape. Roby House, designed for businessman Frederick C. Roby, is the best example of the prairie style. Here's a good a nice picture of this Frederick C. Roby house. Yeah, you'll notice that a lot of horizontal lines, flat roof here. That's if you just look at that, you're like, yeah, that's prairie style right there. Prairie style. And we see some. This is the inside of that house, the inside of the Frederick Roby house, and again, low ceilings. Flat roofs, flat ceilings, a lot of wood, right? Very natural interiors. Nothing faux there. It's all wood. Stained glass, that's a big part of that prairie style. The stained glass brings in the colors. A lot of windows, right? A lot of windows in this style. They want to bring the nature in. So a lot of big windows. Prairie style. Now, Fallingwater House. Another successful businessman, Edgar Kaufman Sr., hires Wright to build him a house. It's just a weekend home for his family. He's from Pittsburgh. And the site chosen was in rural western Pennsylvania. And it had a waterfall and a stream, the land, right? And Wright was like, all right, here. He's 67 years old now, all right? So he's been doing this for a while. And he's like, all right, I can picture it in my head. He's gonna create something truly extraordinary by incorporating this waterfall in the stream into the house. Most people would just design a house that had a nice view of the waterfall. And Wright's like, no, I'm gonna build the house right on top of the waterfall. The waterfall is going to be part of the house. That's exactly what he did. There it is. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. So instead of placing the house with a view of the waterfall, he just built it right on top of the waterfall. Very unconventional at the time, but it's not surprising that Wright did it. That's the embodiment of his philosophy. This creating a harmony between where people live and the natural environment. The architecture doesn't dominate nature, right? But rather becomes part of it. Yeah. So they started building in 1936, it was completed in 1939. Many people owned the house over time. The last person to live there, well, we'll get to that in a second. But you can see this engineering, this cantilever terraces, and you can't see from this picture, because it looks like it's just floating there, doesn't it? Floating above the waterfall. There are actually stands that keep the floor from falling down, but it's just floating there in nature. Beautifully done. Beautifully done. More pictures coming up here soon. We see here again the sandstone. He uses local sandstone to blend the structure. Huge windows, right? We're going to bring nature in. All with that whole idea of prairie, idea of architecture, the prairie style, right? Even in Western Pennsylvania, we're bringing the prairie style in. Again, we see that sandstone, right? He brought that sandstone in. It's local sandstone, local nature here, and he kind of takes that right into the house as part of the structure. Yeah, so the last person to live in Fallingwater House did not have any sons or daughters, any children. So they didn't have anybody to pass it down to. So instead they just donated the house and everything in it to the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy, that who preserves the home now. So that furniture that's in Fallingwater House is the last person who lived there furniture. So they just left it all for them. It's a National Historic Landmark, draws visitors from around the world, including Trinity's own Ms. Zaccaro, who was kind enough to share these pictures. She actually took these pictures while she went to Fallingwater House, and then she found out that I was giving this presentation. I was like, I've got some pictures that I took there. And so, again, big windows, they're bringing nature in. It's almost like that those trees are in the living room, right, with those big windows. Lots of light, lots of natural light, but still the flat roofs, lots of horizontal lines. I have another picture. Did I put the picture in there? There was another picture. I forgot. I didn't put this picture in here. I wish I had. There's a part of the house where there's stairs, and the stairs go straight down to the stream that is the beginning of that waterfall. And you can walk right down to it, and you can fish in the stream. I wouldn't wade in that stream because you get taken down the waterfall. But yeah, there's stairs straight down to the stream where you can stand there and look at the water go by. Right here, the water go by. So yeah, so all incorporated in there. What's the connection between Fallingwater House and Scythe? Is it just by accident or whim that the author of Scythe, Neil Schusterman, did he just just flip a coin and say, where am I gonna have Scythe Curie live? How about Fallingwater? And do you think that was just an accident he did that, or he just pulled it out of a hat? Or do you think that there's some connection between Fallingwater House, the philosophy of Frank Lloyd Wright, and Scythe Saif Curie's philosophy on gleaning? Which one do you think it is? Happy accident or purposeful literature?
It's probably purposeful.
Probably purposeful, right. Authors don't do that. They don't just say, I'm just going to pull something out of a hat. They're like, I'm going to make a connection here. So what is the connection between Saif Curie's philosophy on gleaning, right? What's the connection between that and Frank Lloyd Wright's philosophy on architecture? Anybody remember Saif Curie in there? Right? Now, when she was choosing someone to glean, who did she purposefully look for? Do you remember that in the book?
Wasn't it like the oldest person, or whoever had like turned the most corners or like lived the longest?
Okay, yeah, it was somebody whose spark for life had gone, right? Whether they turned so many corners and they're just kind of like, I'm done. You know, I've kind of done it all, seen it all, turned a bunch of corners, but she could notice that they had just lost that I don't know, that zest for life, right? And so, well, what does that have to do with Frank Lloyd Wright, right? Well, they're kind of, as you were suggesting, kind of at the end of their life for a person in this society who could be at the end of their life, right? I mean, they don't die, so it's like, but they're still kind of at the end of their life. They're at the natural end of their life, right? So she's looking for people who are as naturally as it can be in the society that they're in, a society that's overcome death, finding someone who's kind of at that natural end of their life, where they've lost that will, really, to live. So, and that's similar to Wright. Wright sought harmony between humans and nature. And Saif Curie also sought this harmony between nature and gleaning. Right? She chose to glean only those who had already lost the will to live, those who were naturally near death. And that really should put that in quotation marks. Naturally near death. So as she tries to connect nature and gleaning, like Frank Lloyd Wright connects architecture and nature, right? They both have nature as their guiding philosophy. I'm going to include nature in my architecture, right? Saif Curie is, I'm going to include nature in my gleaning. So it's not clearly not an accident that Schusterman has Saif Curie living in a Frank Lloyd Wright house, because that whole idea of nature. How about that? How about that connection?
Really good.
You know, like that?
Yeah, I just found it. I was chapter 18.
Chapter 18? Chapter 18, check that out. Right. I have 2 degrees in English. So. All right. So, taking my English architecture hat off, or architect hat off. Now I'm going to put on my college counseling architecture hat on, and we're going to talk a little bit about how to become an architect. Let's say you're interested in becoming an architect. How does one do that? Right? How does one become an architect? Well, first you have to know what architects do. This is something we have in the college counseling. We meet a lot of students, and we ask, you know, what do you want to do? You know, when you grow up, what career do you want to get into? And a very popular answer is engineer. I want to be an engineer. And our next question is usually, do you know what engineers do? And a lot of times we're like, no, I have no idea, but I hear it's very popular and it pays pretty well. Okay, those 2 things are true. But you should know what they do. before you decide that's what you want to do with your career. Same way with an architect. What do they do? Well, they design buildings. They ensure they're functional and safe and aesthetically pleasing. All right? Other things you have to keep in mind: environmental impact, right? Sustainability. And then there's a lot of teamwork in being an architect. You have to be a team player because you have to work with clients, right? Like Mr. Kaufman was Frank Lloyd Wright's client. You have to work with engineers because you can come up with the design for the building, but the engineers are the ones who are going to build it for you. And of course, construction teams. It's a lot going on there, a lot going on. It's not always just working at a desk designing, right? Using your computer-aided design to create a blueprint for a building, but you have to get out, right? You're outside sometimes, you're watching the construction of this building that you've designed, you're getting dirty, that kind of thing. So, and understand the role of an architect before you get in it. So let's say you understand the role of the architect. You're like, that sounds like something I want to do. I want to do that. Well, now is the time that you start focusing on subjects you can take here at Trinity to prepare you for that, right? Math, physics, art, right? And remember, computer-aided design is an art class here at Trinity. It's an art class. Computer-aided design, drawing, drafting, right? Physics, right? You got to know how things move in nature, right? You got to know the physics of this. How much weight can this hold, right? How much support do I need for this building, right? And math. Physics and math go hand in hand. You've got to be able to do the math once you know the physical, the physics calculation. You've got to be able to do the math there. Advanced math, particularly important, right? Geometry, algebra, perhaps some pre-calculus, but we want to make sure you have some math. Art classes, right? Not only help you with just developing your own style, but also just design principles. Right? We're talking about, you want to make sure your buildings are aesthetically pleasing, and so art will teach you those design principles so you know what is aesthetically pleasing. Is this aesthetically pleasing? Right? Talk about the, I don't know, what's that curve they call it? You'd see it in seashells, you see it in other, I can't remember what it's called, the something, yes. But that's what we're talking about, design principles.
Yeah.
So you get out of high school and you're like, I want to become an architect, so I'm going to go to college and pursue a bachelor's degree in architecture, right? And so you want to make sure you look for a program that's NAAB accredited, the National Architectural Accrediting Board, right? There is only one NAAB accredited architecture program in Kentucky, and that is at the University of Kentucky College of Design's School of Architecture. It is the only school in the state of Kentucky that has a bachelor's degree in architecture, right? And it's typically a 5-year degree, right? There's an extra year in there. A 5-year degree, coursework in architectural design, building systems, structural engineering, the history of architecture. Got to know all that stuff, right? And then that last year is most likely an internship with a local architect, so you can kind of get some real world experience. There are bachelor's degrees in architectures that are NAAB accredited in Indiana. Indiana University has a program. Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana, also has a BA, or probably BS, in architecture as well. So if you want to stay in state and you want to be an architect, you have to go to the University of Kentucky. Otherwise, you have to go out of state. The University of Tennessee in Knoxville has a bachelor's degree in architecture? Yes. So, but if you're staying in state, it's UK. Yeah. So, while you're studying, seek internships, part-time jobs at architectural firms. What are you gonna do over the summer? Try to get an internship. Hands-on experience is what you need. So you sit in class and it's all theory. Like, oh, well, in theory, this building should stand using this. Or in theory, this would be an aesthetically pleasing building. But you gotta get out there and actually do it, right? In real world settings, to see if all that theory that you've learned actually applies to real world stuff, right? So, internships, besides learning real world stuff, you're meeting people, you're making connections, networking, all right? You've heard, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Have you heard that saying before? It's not what you know, it's who you know. But that's true in a lot of jobs, including architecture, right? Let's think about Frank Lloyd Wright, right? Who did he get in with? Well, Louis Sullivan, the father of the skyscraper, he was pretty darn well known. And you're like, who did you study under? Louis Sullivan. Well, you must be something big, because he studied under one of the most famous architects in the United States. So professional networking can be helpful for future job opportunities. An optional step here is to complete a master's degree, right? To have a master's degree in architecture. And this is specifically if your undergraduate degree is not in architecture. And you can do that, right? You can go to undergraduate school and theoretically major in anything. You could major in anything and then apply to the graduate school in the School of Architecture and study architecture and have a master's degree. There are degrees that lend itself to architecture, an art degree, right? An art degree, a degree in math, a degree in physics even, lends itself, right? An English major who would turn around and become, who wants to get into a master's degree in architecture, probably doesn't, the work you've done so far doesn't lend itself to architecture. So I had a friend who did this very same thing. I went to Center College, a small liberal arts and sciences school in Danville, Kentucky. So a friend of mine, he graduated with a degree in like English and art, right? Took a couple years off, but did art-related work. One of his jobs was he was hired by an advertising firm, and his job was to go to like store windows and design what goes into the store windows, right? So, and it was his job. He's like, okay, what's you want me to show this in the store window? So so he spent his time, and then he ended up going to architecture school, and he got his master's degree in architecture, and now he runs an art museum in Orlando, Florida. So there you go. He's been kind of all around the place, but he did get a master's degree. And of course, he did it here in state. And what's the only NAAB accredited architecture program in the Commonwealth of Kentucky? Is it University of Kentucky? Again, so if you want to get a master's degree in architecture, again, the only place you can go is the University of Kentucky. But again, there are programs in Indiana. IU has a master's degree. Tennessee has a master's degree as well. Bowling Green State University in Ohio has a master's degree. Ball State has a master's degree. So there are others not too far away from Louisville where you can go and get that master's degree. But it's optional. There are plenty of architects who just stop at their 5-year bachelor's degree and don't go on.
Do any of you all want to be architects?
Anybody want to be an architect? No?
No.
I'd consider it.
It's okay. Maybe somebody watching. You do have to get licensed, right? You got to pass a test, just like a teacher's got to pass a test, and Any professional is going to have a test, like the bar exam for lawyers, or medical exams for doctors. Architects also must pass the test, the architect registration examination, right? Just test all of your knowledge. Plus, you have to have some professional experience. So you've got to have not only pass the test, but also work about 3 years under a licensed architect. God bless you, to get your license. And once you're a fully licensed architect, well, do you just rest on your laurels? No. Just like a teacher or a doctor or a lawyer, you got to keep up on the new trends, right? What's going on, where I can learn some more, become a better lawyer, better doctor, better teacher. Same way with architects. What's new, right? So continuously learn and adapt. What's the latest trend? What's the latest technologies? Prior to Frank Lloyd Wright, everybody had this one idea about what architecture should look like, right? It should dominate nature, right? We're going to tear down all this nature. I'm going to build this huge skyscraper in the middle of the city, right? Right? It's like, forget that. We're not going to do that. And so there's this new design trend. So everybody's like, oh, early 1900s. This prairie style, I love this. I love these flat roofs. I love these horizontal lines. I love these big windows, right? So that, people learned that. It's like, oh, hey, I'm learning and adapting. Here are some new design trends. Sustainability is big, right? Sustainability is big. In an environmentally conscious society, how can I build this building with the least carbon footprint possible, right? How can I make that it's not wasting energy, it's energy efficient? Those are types of things that architectures have to deal with more today than they've had in the past, right? And of course, they join professional organizations, they attend workshops, continue to take courses, so to enhance those skills and knowledge in architecture. So it's a lifelong learning experience, like being a teacher is as well. And of course, you want to build your portfolio, just like Wright built his portfolio with internships and studies. And when he went to Lewis Sullivan, said, hey, can I have a job? Here's my portfolio. Sullivan was like, you bet. All right. Don't have a degree? That's okay. Look at your designs. They're awesome. By following these steps, you can set yourself on the path of becoming a successful architect, right? If you have a passion for design, dedication to learning, maybe a little bit of art talent, right? Or technological talent. Maybe you took that computer-aided design course and just aced it, and you're like, this is kind of interesting, right? This might be you. You're well equipped to make a significant impact in the field of architecture. You could be the next Frank Lloyd Wright.
Do you all know we have a Frank Lloyd Wright building in Louisville? Do you know which one it is? Yeah, Caden Tower. Do you know Caden Tower?
Really? Yeah.
That's a Frank Lloyd Wright design.
With
If
with Ruth Chris on the
with
top of it?
Ruth, have you know which building I'm talking about? When you drive past it, it kind of seems like a high-rise building, but as you drive past it, it almost looks like it's built into the landscape.
Into the landscape, right?
And it also has that sandstone look.
Right, that we saw in Fallingwater House. Yeah.
Yes,
Right.
yes. So that is a Frank Lloyd Wright building.
Well, look at that. I didn't even know that. I would have brought that in here if I'd known. Not brought the building in, but I would have had a picture of it.
Yeah. Well, I think it houses Texas Roadhouse
Yeah, their headquarters.
office
Right,
headquarters there. So if you're ever driving toward Bardstown Road, you would see it.
You're right by
Yeah.
it. Yeah, and it's got the little pond
Yeah.
in front of it, so it's bringing in
Yes,
nature.
absolutely. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Caden Towers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Caden Tower. Mhm.
All right. That was quick. What was that? Oh, that was almost 30 minutes. wasn't
Yeah,
it?
you all did
Oh my
great.
gosh,
So
it's 30
this
minutes.
link is going to be up in case you want to go back to it for any of the reflection pieces, okay?
Thank you.